Erika, welcome.
Here, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you just fine.
Great.
Okay, Jack is with us.
Hello.
Louise Good is here. Maxine is here. Very good.
And of course, you're here, Dave.
Yeah, well, whether I'm all here or not, I don't know.
Good to see everybody joining, and I see Pat McBee. She's one of our volunteers. It's nice to see a familiar face out there.
Well, I'm Dave Hodgen. I'm the president of the Scotts Valley Senior Life Association. I want to welcome everybody to joining us. We're, as you know, we're a 501c3 nonprofit community benefit organization. And one of the things that we like to do is prevent these Zoom calls to give you a chance to chat with interesting people with interesting topics. Today's presentation is from Erika Smart, who's the program manager at Santa Cruz County Animal Shelter. Erika, we're delighted to have you with us today.
Thank you.
Want to suggest to everybody that visit our website, which is scottsvalleyseniorlife.org. Sign up for our newsletter. Of course, we're always interested in donations. We're a nonprofit that's totally dependent on donations. Let's see. Everything we do for seniors is no cost to them. We are run by an all-volunteer group of seniors. Since everything is volunteer, nearly 100% of donations received are used to directly help seniors living in this area. You can designate Scotts Valley Senior Life Association as your favorite charity when you shop through Amazon Smile, and they send us checks based on the cumulative purchases of all our members. We've done all sorts of projects in the community, such as electronic defibrillators, exercise machines, patio umbrellas for the Scotts Valley Senior Center. Typically, we do 2 to 3 free workshops annually on the topic of senior health. This year, of course, it's been a little different. So we've been doing these semi-monthly Zoom calls. They're held every first and third Monday of the month. This is what the board of directors looks like. Scotts Valley Performing Arts Center is one of the groups that we support, which is coming along very nicely. The current situation is that all the lights have been hung from the ceiling. The floor is being cleared so that it can be resealed. And then the next step is putting up the stage, which is already there, ready to be assembled. So it's coming along. This presentation will be recorded. And so, of course, if you don't want to have it recorded, you can disable your video feed. All you have to do is click the stop video icon in the lower left corner of your screen. Typically, we take these recordings and post them on our website so that people who could not attend can come back later and see what the program was about. Erika is going to talk about wildlife in Santa Cruz County and talk about something of the animal shelter's core services and local animal laws and outdoor and feral cats and volunteer opportunities with the Santa Cruz County Animal Shelter. With that, Erika, let me introduce you. Please tell the folks about yourself.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. My name is Erika Smart, and I'm the Program and Development Manager here at the Santa Cruz County Animal Shelter. I've been with the shelter since 2018, and it has been just nonstop of fun, of course. As you can see, I'm sitting in a room right now that has animal compartments. There's some kittens in there that actually came in today, 13 cats from one household where the parents' cats were not spayed and neutered, but luckily they reached out to us so that we could get them in here. So I apologize in advance before I start talking for any noises you might hear, people coming into this office, the cats going crazy behind me, or announcements over the intercom. It is always stuff going on here, especially with the animals. So today I'm going to talk about our core services and just kind of go over all the different things that we do here. One of my favorite things about working for the Santa Cruz County Animal Shelter is that I always run into people in the community that, one, don't know the difference between us and the SPCA, and two, they do not realize all the things that we do. It really is, I was impressed coming onto the team, how much the Santa Cruz County Animal Shelter does in the community. And over the last 2 years, I've been really proud to be a part of some of these great projects. So with that being said, we are the only open admission shelter in Santa Cruz County. We are technically a JPA, a Joint Powers Authority. Similarly to how the Santa Cruz Public Libraries operate, we work with the county as well as all the other jurisdictions. So on our board of directors, there's representatives from all the different jurisdictions that we serve. So City of Santa Cruz, County of Santa Cruz, Capitola, Scotts Valley, Boulder Creek, Watsonville, everywhere. So with that being said too, we also have animal control. So our animal control officers are out in the community every day, providing greatly needed services. We are very past the point of the dog catcher from The Lady and the Tramp, which I think is sometimes how people picture and imagine our animal control officers, but I like to think of them more as humane officers. Oftentimes they're out in the community in plain clothes is what we call it, not full-on law enforcement uniform. They're working with the homeless community. They're doing what we call door-to-door outreach, where if they get, let's say, a barking dog complaint, or someone calls in a complaint that a dog is being left outside unattended for hours and hours in a day, they'll go and knock on the door and do a knock and talk and offer them dog food, a dog house, and just in general education. And that is something that our officers take very seriously, as well as something that our whole agency takes seriously. And you'll see as I talk about some of our other programs here. But one of the big things we do here is we are the only agency that does receive stray or owner surrendered animals. So that is one of the big differences between us and the SPCA. The SPCA is a great organization that does a lot for the community as well, but they are limited admission, which means they take animals that are highly adoptable. They take them from different shelters or agencies throughout the community, and that could be elsewhere throughout the state. And I believe they've taken dogs from out of the country also as well. Whereas we are where a stray animal or an owner surrender animal would go. So that looks like a couple of different things. It could be maybe a dog that's hit by a car. They're severely injured and they need medical attention immediately. It could be someone who is having trouble finding housing in Santa Cruz County, which is the #1 reason that people surrender their pets to us in Santa Cruz, is because they are not able to find pet-friendly housing. It could be someone that, like these cats behind me, their cats outside started having lots of kittens and they couldn't get it under control, get the adult cats caught, spayed and neutered. So they end up surrendering them to us here. So it's so many different things. And that's one of the big differences between us and the SPCA. They focus on adoption and bringing in highly adoptable animals, whereas we are dealing with any animal that comes into the community that doesn't have a place to go. And we do work with the Santa Cruz SPCA as well as different rescue organizations for animals that might have a harder time getting adopted. So for example, about 2 months ago, I went on an outreach call out in the homeless community, and I was going to do some outreach at a trailer where I knew that there was about 9 cats. When I walked into the RV, there was actually 40 cats, and it was intense. It was a hoarding situation, and that day I left with 23 cats in my personal car. I drive a RAV4. There was 23 cats in my personal vehicle that day. And we ended up removing all of the cats and being able to help them. But a lot of those cats were under socialized. They also had a lot of genetic issues and conditions that required additional medical treatment and foster care. And that was something that we worked with a variety of other organizations, including the Santa Cruz SPCA, to place some of those cats that needed additional care. They also, of course, take dogs from us as well. But then with rabbits and barn animals, we work with groups like Rabbit Haven. There's also a wonderful little sanctuary farm out in Watsonville called Little Hill Animal Rescue. They've taken a lot of goats and pigs and even some chickens that have some medical conditions that need care. So we're really fortunate in Santa Cruz that we never have to euthanize animals here for space. That's not something that we're in the business of doing. Whereas a lot of organizations, where I'm from the Central Valley, Modesto area, and that is something that they do have to do there. But I want to point out that an open admission shelter is a reflection of the community. So in Modesto, that is a reflection of the Stanislaus County community. Whereas in Santa Cruz, our shelter and the way we're able to do things here and the way we operate all of our progressive programs is because of people like all of you that are here in the community participating in it in a progressive way, where we are able to place more animals and educate more people on how to care for their animals. And with that being said, that leads me to local animal laws, which is something that I think has also drastically helped our intake here at the shelter. We receive about 5,000 animals each year, which definitely sounds like a lot, but in comparison with how big Santa Cruz is, it's a decent number. It's a manageable number. And especially with all the rescue groups that we're able to work with. And we have a mandatory spay and neuter ordinance here in Santa Cruz County, which I think does help prevent a lot of unwanted and homeless animals in our community. And it is something that other counties look to us as the model for and want to implement in their own counties. Sometimes it gets a lot of pushback because of people who want to breed dogs, cats as well. And in Santa Cruz County, they would have to apply for a special license. It's called an unaltered license to be able to do things like that. It is quite expensive. So when, for example, an unaltered, unspayed and neutered animal comes to our shelter, if it got out and it was stray and the owner wanted to claim it unaltered, they would have to pay extensive fees in order to do that so that they're in compliance with the law. It is also required with local animal laws for people to have their dog licensed. There is a $29 annual license. I have on here, I think there were some possible questions about some senior licenses as well. That's just the $29 fee one time, and then after that, it is just free. But we do have you renew it, and I can drop the information in the chat when I'm finished with the presentation here. Next on my list, I have types of wildlife, but before we move on, I want to make sure that no one has any questions. If you do have some questions, feel free to raise your hand at any point. I am very happy to just keep talking and talking about animals in Santa Cruz. So if anyone has questions, please let me know.
I have a question.
Yeah.
The license that you mentioned for seniors, is that at age 65? Is that when you can offer the $29 one pay and that's it?
Yes. Yes. So it's the $29 the one time for 65 and over, and then the renewal, it looks like they still ask you to renew it, but it's $0. So I think once you hit the 65 and you have the license on file, all is well.
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, I've been in other parts of the country, some poorer parts of the country, where there are packs of dogs that can attack animals and even people. Is that an issue anywhere in our county? Do you know?
You know, not that I know of. It's not something that I've heard of or anything that I'm aware of. Something that I think is a little bit unique to our community that I haven't personally dealt with in the 2 years that I've been working here, but it's something that our officers have told me about is cockfighting and the breeding and keeping of roosters to have them as fighting chickens. And this is something that they have done numerous investigations on and they've been very successful in keeping it down, but unfortunately it's just so secretive that I'm sure there's still a lot out there. And every now and then we'll get cases of large amounts of roosters that are unfortunately very aggressive, and we're not able to place them in homes. So, but yeah, we don't have the packs of wild dogs. I know I have a friend that is familiar with the sheltering in Arizona, and she was mentioning this to me as well. And again, I think it is just directly speaks to our community here in Santa Cruz that we've really embraced a lot of the progressive programming that is available for animal welfare, and it shows in the shelter population that we see here.
Okay, great. Well, we've certainly adopted a lot of animals over the years, and we have 2 of them right now, and we're very happy with them. So
great. Awesome. Love to hear that. All right. So I'll move on to wildlife. So this is interesting too, because I actually just I had 2 experiences with Native Animal Rescue, and they're a partner that we work with directly for any wildlife that we come into contact with, because they are the experts on it in our community, and they're just great people to work with. We have a summer camp going on right now. We're actually in the final week of it, where kids ages 6 through 11 come to the shelter for a week, and they get to do all kinds of things, from making treats for the animals to getting to interact with shelter dogs and cats and rabbits and whatever else we have. Today they were out in the barn with the chickens, collecting eggs and just doing fun animal stuff. And Native Animal Rescue has come and done this presentation that is awesome. They actually have a possum that comes to the presentations that you get to see. This one of their volunteers actually rehabilitates the possums, and sometimes they're not able to be re-released into the wild, and they actually only have a lifespan of about 2 years. So this one possum that she has right now, his name's Magic. He's just gorgeous, and it was so interesting to get to meet him. And my other interaction with Native Animal Rescue recently, I was going for a walk after work, and I found a baby bird on the ground. So I thought, okay, well, back to work I go. So I took the baby bird, and luckily Native Animal Rescue was still open. I handed them the baby bird, and that's it. They're keeping it safe and rehabilitating it, and hopefully we'll be able to release it out in the wild somewhere when it's strong enough. So we do work closely with Native Animal Rescue as well as Humane Wildlife Control. And I do want to talk about Humane Wildlife Control a little bit, because my biggest tip that I have for dealing with local wildlife is, if you have a wildlife nuisance, be it rats or squirrels or crows or whatever the situation is, I just encourage everyone to reach out first to Native Animal Rescue or to Humane Wildlife Control. And I can forward along their direct contact information as well. But it's so important for our wildlife community that we don't put any poisons out, because unfortunately what we see happen here on our end, as far as animals coming in that need to be euthanized, is that poison, while it's being put out to get rid of rats or mice, then an owl swoops down and eats one of those rats or mice, and then they're poisoned too. And then we see a poisoned owl come in that we have to euthanize, this big, beautiful owl. And we'd much rather have it be out in the world being our natural pest control, because they will eat those. So something that Native Animal Rescue and Humane Wildlife Control works on that I think is really cool, and we actually have one here, is barn owl boxes. And they actually can set these up for people on their properties if that's something that you're interested in. If you have owls that you've already seen, giving them a barn owl box to nest in is a great way to prevent those rats and mice and different pests that might be disrupting your property without having to put poison out or anything like that. And Humane Wildlife Control, they work on exclusion is how they reference it. So instead of using poison or bait or traps, that's kind of the very last resort, is trapping them. They work on finding out how the rodents are getting inside of a space where you don't want them, to try to help you with excluding them. Because if they can't access the things that they want, they will go away. So that's something that I grew up on a farm in the Central Valley, and I've been around all kinds of animals. My family raised ostriches actually, and dealing with rodents is something that I'm very familiar with. And growing up, it was always putting out sticky traps or mouse traps, and I have very vivid memories of how horrible that is for the animal and feeling really terrible for them, even though it's this pesky mouse or rat that's causing problems and ruining horse feed or goat feed or whatever. But there's better ways now that we have more knowledge and education of how to safely prevent these animals from disrupting our properties. That's my main tip, is reaching out to one of those groups that deal with the native animals. With that being said too, we work with Native Animal Rescue on any case where they need to euthanize an animal. So we do see a lot of local wildlife come through the building, and we always operate with great care when dealing with the local wildlife, because usually it is a very unfortunate circumstance: poison, hit by car. There's been a huge distemper outbreak in the raccoon community here in Santa Cruz. Originated on the west side kind of in the spring, and it's been kind of slowly spreading into the Seabright neighborhood. You may have seen it in the newspapers. We have put out some press releases, because one of our programs that we offer is our one-stop low-cost vaccine program, where people can bring their dogs and cats here to get low-cost distemper parvo vaccines for both cats and dogs, as well as the rabies vaccine, which is really important so that people's own pets don't come down with distemper. What distemper looks like in a raccoon is not how we picture rabies, where they're like foaming at the mouth and being aggressive. They actually look like a small drunk baby. Like, they kind of sit upright and stare at you, and they look intoxicated. Their eyes might be kind of goopy. They look sick. They really can't see you. And that's the biggest red flag for a sick raccoon with distemper. We are very fortunate here in Santa Cruz that we don't see cases of rabies. We do on occasion send certain animals that don't have vaccine records, or wild animals that have bit. We send them for rabies testing, and it doesn't come back positive. So that's not something we see here as far as wildlife goes. Other wildlife that we see a lot of, or see the result of, is coyotes. I love to talk about coyotes, and especially in relationship to having outdoor cats or feral cats. One of the programs that I've operated, not since COVID, but pre-COVID, is the catio tour. And a catio, if you're wondering, is an outdoor enclosure that's basically for very spoiled outdoor kitties that get to have a safe space outside. They get pretty fancy. We have on our website, you can actually take a look through the guide. I think it's on the resource page, but we put out a guide that has a list of catios with great photos from a local photographer, and you can kind of take a look at what those look like. So the catio tour, we would sell tickets for, and people would get to go and explore other local people's catios and get ideas for their own. And the purpose of it, and why I brought up coyotes, is because we either get coyotes in here. Oftentimes we see them getting caught in a soccer net at one point, see them getting caught in different fencing. I live in Capitola. I've seen them walking in broad daylight just down the street. So we do see cats that come in that are either unfortunately dead, or have been pretty beaten up by coyotes. And they are a huge danger to any outdoor cat in our community. In addition with that, outdoor cats, I'm sure a lot of you have probably read about this, but they do have a negative effect on our native bird population. And that's why we partner with Native Animal Rescue for the catio tour, is to encourage people who do have outdoor cats to keep them in an outdoor enclosure so that they can't kill our native birds, and also to protect them from coyotes and other, I'm sure, mountain lions up in Boulder Creek and Felton area. But luckily we don't have to worry about that down here. There's also extensive research showing that cat feces is having a negative impact on the otter population. When the cat feces is going into the water system, unfortunately, it's very toxic for otters. And now research is even showing that it is impacting dolphins and whales as well. So it's interesting when we talk about feral cats, because my first instinct and our instinct here at the shelter is that we want there to be a caregiver. So I think people think of TNR, or trap, neuter, release, as, oh, I found this cat, I'm going to spay and neuter them and then put them right back out there. And that's great when you think about it just at that level. Cat can't have any more babies, that's awesome. But what happens when the cat gets hit by a car, or it needs vaccines again, or it has an abscessed tooth, or it ends up having diabetes, or something else going on with it? It needs a caregiver. It needs someone that's going to provide that essential care and be a pet owner for the cat. And I'm sure a lot of people are thinking, well, how the heck am I going to vaccinate a feral cat? We do encourage people to trap their feral cats, or even barn cats that they have, and take them to a vet on a regular basis, because they are your pet and they do still need that care. And it is very sad, the occasions that I've seen where outdoor only cats haven't been to a vet until they are very, very old, and they come in and have these horribly painful teeth. And the actual reason why they are at the end of their life is because they haven't been able to eat, because of the actual pain that they have going on in their mouth, which is sad. Michael, I see you have your hand raised. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Erica. So we're a cat family, and we are working on our catio. We found a great designer guy, but he's just been totally backed up on other construction jobs. And I'm wondering if your website, do you have a list of catio builders in addition to just pictures of catios?
Yes. If you check out the catio booklet on our resource page, so scanimalshelter.org, that's our website. And then on the resources tab, there should be a catio booklet. And in the booklet, it has a list of builders. I bet I know who you're talking about, who's really busy, because I was in contact with someone who was saying, since the last catio tour and over COVID, I have been so busy building all these catios, which just makes me so excited because the cats enjoy it. We have a catio here at the shelter, and I love putting shelter cats out there so that they can have some outdoor time in a safe place for them and for the wildlife. So I'm happy to hear that you're working on that.
We're trying to. Yeah, we had to move all our cats indoors for reasons you can understand. Separate question, going back to raccoons. Yep. We have, so almost every year, some years not, but this year is one of those where we have a mama who likes to go under our deck and have her babies. And they're adorable. Now they sometimes come out, mama comes out, and then there's the 4 little ones who follow her, and they make their way over through a neighbor's yard to a creek. What we're curious about, and you know, they're quite delightful. We think they're really cute, and we don't mind hosting them. What we're curious though about is this likely the same mama every year, or is it one of her babies that comes back and makes this their home, or is it just we just happen to be found year after year by different raccoons?
That's a good question. I'm really not sure of the exact answer, but I would say it's probably likely that it's at least familial, that they're coming back there because it seems like a safe space. But yeah, man, those baby raccoons are really cute though. We had a few come in that we sent to Native Animal Rescue, and they're so adorable. But I would say if you have more questions about raccoons, and maybe, I mean, it sounds like you're okay with them being there, but reaching out to Native Animal Rescue, they probably have some additional information on, I don't know, other things that you might be able to do for them.
Yeah, they're not a problem. I mean, in the evening when they come out, all the cats line up at the window and they watch them, and they all look at each other and go about their business. No problem.
That sounds very cute. You should get that video recorded.
Yeah, I think we probably have some of that. Yes. Thanks.
That's great. Does anyone else have any questions? So I'm thinking, let's see, feral cats I kind of talked about. And just, I mentioned barn cats briefly, but we do a barn cat program here that is kind of on pause at the moment because we've been working with Heading Home Animal Rescue, and there's also Project Purr out in the community that works on this as well. But our barn cat program is basically looks like this. If a cat comes in that is feral and we're not going to be able to place it up for adoption in a normal situation like a normal social cat, then we might opt to do the barn cat program with that cat. So we'll spay and neuter them, and then we look for an adoptive family that has a structure is what we ask for. So that could look like an actual barn, a real barn. It could be a shed, it could be a catio, it could be any structure outdoors that can serve as a shelter for the cat. And then we set them up where the cat goes out to that property, and they'll actually live in that structure for 3 to 4 weeks. It's called an acclimation period. And during that time, the new adopter is providing food and water. They're changing the cat litter. They're taking care of that cat. They're just not petting it and stuff like that because the cat's not social and they wouldn't want to be pet and snuggled with or anything. And during that time, they're teaching the cat that that is a safe place for them to come. And then at the end of the acclimation period, the cat is able to come out of that space, but it should always be open so that they can return to it. And it's also encouraged for barn cat owners to always feed their cat like something really enticing, like wet food in the evening before it gets dark, to kind of train the cat that they want to come back to that space at night to spend the night in there so that they're not prey for whatever is out there, coyotes, mountain lions, or anything else. But the important thing to note there between, barn cats and strictly feral cats that are like trap, neuter, release out in the community, the barn cats have an owner. We're adopting them out to a pet owner who is agreeing to provide any medical care that they might need and to take care of them. And we do work with barn cat owners who they've had their cats for a few years and they're needing some medical assistance, or they know they're due for their vaccines and they want to get them vaccinated because like I just talked about, if raccoons are out in their community, a cat or dog could get distemper from a raccoon. So having them vaccinated against that is important to their health. So yeah, I think that's kind of all the stuff I can think about for outdoor cats. If anyone thinks of any questions, please let me know. So I think the next part here that I'm going to talk about is the CZU fire. Specifically how it impacted local wildlife is still, I think, a little to be determined. I know it feels like, right now it feels like it was a long time ago because it lasted so long for us here at the shelter. And I thought it might be a little bit more interesting to share what that was like here for us during those, 8-10 weeks that followed the fire, because we haven't seen a lot of the impact on wild animals. I bet Native Animal Rescue probably had seen more of that. But when the CZU fire hit and all the people from the mountain communities were evacuated, we had over 500 animals staying here at our Santa Cruz facility. There were 1,200 animals being housed out at the fairgrounds, which we were providing food and supportive care for. And in addition to that, our animal control officers were going up into the burn zone with the equine evacuation team of Santa Cruz County to provide food and water, which we were calling feeding in place, to animals that were left behind. And these weren't like dogs or large livestock. This was more like chickens and other fowl, as well as outdoor cats that couldn't be contained. It would have been very difficult to trap them. So animals like that is mostly what was left behind. So our officers were going up every day. They actually had some people's house keys. There were a couple instances where like rabbits were left inside indoor spaces. So they would go in and feed and water the animals. And there were, I think, 4,500 animals up in that community that they were providing food and water for during that time. So the shelter was completely full. We sent all animals that were shelter property, we sent them into foster homes. Luckily, people were able to take them in so that we can make room for all the evacuated animals. Our volunteers were, I think I worked probably 15-hour days in a row when it first started, and most of our volunteers were right alongside of us doing the same thing, which we couldn't have done what we did without all the volunteer help that we had, from helping us organize donated supplies out front for evacuees to come and pick up, to cleaning kennels because it just seemed like it was never ending with how many, we had so many cats. But we also had lots of different animals. There were, I had a ferret that lived on my desk for about 8 weeks. There were different exotic reptiles, birds. It was a zoo. It was a zoo here. And something that really stuck with me during the fire was there was one woman who lost her home during the fire, and she was really struggling to find housing in Santa Cruz where she could take her dogs. And she did have a lot of dogs. I think she had about 7. So obviously it's probably hard to find housing for 7 dogs when you don't own the home. And it was really difficult for her during that time. And her dogs stayed with us, I want to say, for 12 weeks. And our volunteers loved spending the time with her dogs, that when she came to pick them up, she expressed that she didn't even feel like she was away from them that long because she got to come and visit them, and knew that our volunteers were getting them out because they were sending her photos and videos of them getting to all hang out together and play in the yard and things like that. So it definitely was an interesting experience, and one that I think is staying fresh in our minds as we enter this fire season and trying to prepare people for the worst. And something that we've worked on over the last year is different preparedness seminars and working with people directly. So the Santa Cruz County Equine Evacuation Team has been awesome about this. They've been in contact with almost every person that they've had to help evacuate their livestock in the Santa Cruz Mountains. And they've made direct contact with them and helped them develop a plan so that they, some of the people even went out and bought their own trailers, because a lot of people had horses or cattle or sheep, and they didn't have anything to physically get them off their properties. So that's why they had to use the Equine Evacuation Team. Now, a lot of those people have since purchased their own equipment so that they're able to do it on their own, so that they can leave a lot sooner. So there definitely has been a lot of stuff that has happened in the aftermath that I think has better prepared our whole community, so that we're not hit as hard here with our limited staffing and services that we have. And I think that has been a huge benefit. And I hope that people know that they can reach out to us for planning, because we're happy to just talk about, if you couldn't go home for 10 weeks, where could your dog go? Where could your 5 cats go? What would happen to the 20 chickens you have outside? And just working through some of that, those questions, I think I've seen it help a lot of people kind of determine what they need to have in place. And it's okay if we're the plan for that, and we're happy to help people with that and for their pets to come here in an evacuation and in a crisis like this. But a lot of people, with having a year and dealing with this already, they've been able to better prepare for it. And the debris flow evacuation showed us that people were more prepared for the evacuations to happen. We did not see nearly as many animals evacuate to us or need additional assistance. I actually went and opened the Watsonville, the Santa Cruz County Fairgrounds in Watsonville, and we only received about, I think, maybe 5 horses and a couple mini horses, and all the animal owners were able to stay there and camp on site to care for them. So it was good to see that a lot of the outreach had helped with that. And if any of you know people who need assistance with planning, we're happy to talk with them about it. We also still have a bunch of supplies for people, like crates, and some people were even just looking for a large crate that their dog could stay in at the hotel where they were at, that they could keep their pet with them. They just didn't have any of the supplies because they don't keep their dog in a crate at home. So we have all that stuff, and people can definitely come to us to be better prepared. Does anyone have any questions about the CZU fire? I know I wish I could talk more about the wildlife and how wildlife was impacted, but we haven't seen a huge impact on our end of how the fire affected wildlife. All right. Well, we're almost at the end here, which is crazy. I feel like I've talked everyone's ears off already. But again, please stop me if you have any questions. The last thing I'm going to talk about is volunteer opportunities, which, like I said, with the CZU fire, we could have not survived. I personally could have not survived without all the volunteer help that we had during that time. It was tremendous. So with that being said, we have lots of different volunteer opportunities. We were kind of pausing it during COVID just because it was hard to have orientations and things like that, but we did start doing it online, and we have some of our training programs online now as well. So we have opportunities for cat volunteers to provide cat TLC. We call it cat TLC and dog TLC, and it's with the dogs, you take them out in a yard and walk them. With the cats, it's taking them out into a cat room or sometimes just socializing them in their kennels. We also have a program called Spot for our more experienced volunteers, and they actually get to take shelter dogs out into the community. It's Shelter Pets Out on the Town is what Spot stands for. So sometimes that looks like on Thursday, we'll be at Santa Cruz Mountain Brewing, and we take some dogs out for a program called Ales for Tails. And Santa Cruz Mountain Brewing donates $1 for every beer that's sold to the shelter. And the dogs get to hang out at a brewery and interact with people. And sometimes they meet their adopters there at these events. So we do different things like that. And sometimes volunteers are just going out for a hike or want to go out for a hike with a dog. So they come and get a dog out that needs extra exercise, which is great as well. In addition to that, we also have a need for foster volunteers. Right now, I believe we have over 200 kittens in foster homes. Some of them started from itty bitty little kittens with their mamas, and others come in to us maybe 5 weeks old without a mom. Sometimes they're singletons. Sometimes there was a volunteer I just talked to, she just had 7 at her house, and everyone has fun with the fosters. And dog fosters are especially needed, especially for the larger dogs. It's nice, even if they can do a sleepover, is what we call it, even if it's just a one-night foster, so that we can get some additional information on how the dog does in a home. But it also is very nice for the dogs to decompress. Dogs sleep a lot. If any of you have dogs at home, you might notice this. Oh, did I get muted? Okay. Okay, you can hear me now. Okay.
Yes, we can hear you just fine.
Oh, okay, it said I was muted for a second. I don't know why. Okay, it's nice for dogs to be able to have a sleepover because here at the shelter, there is often overstimulation for them between all the sounds of other dogs barking, of people coming through, of them going out for an adoption show. There's just a lot going on. So a lot of times we see when dogs go on just a sleepover with a volunteer that basically they sleep in the car on the way home, and then when they get home, they lay down on the couch, bed, dog bed, wherever the volunteer lets them, and they just pass out. They just want to sleep and hang out because they are just overstimulated here. And the shelter here it's wonderful. It's I've been to a lot of animal shelters, and like I said, I'm from the Central Valley, and it's just a totally different environment here. We have, I can hear it right now, some slight jazz music playing for all the animals, and plays throughout the shelter all day long to keep them calm. We provide them lots of enrichment like Kongs stuffed with peanut butter and frozen, sometimes big bowls of like chicken broth with dog food in them that they have to work on. And all that stuff really helps them, but it still is an animal shelter, and it still is a loud, sometimes scary place. Oh, Joe, do you have a question?
Yeah, we always have a rescue cat one, and we keep it indoors. And he's not good with, he doesn't play well with other animals, and we're not able to have any like foster animals. But I would be interested in helping to walk dogs and pet cats. And three questions. Do you currently need those type of volunteers? And if so, what would the steps be? And the third question is, what's your organization in relation to some others? Like, is there a humane society? Are you the same thing as the Humane Society? So 3 questions.
Yep. All good questions. So I will be sure to send, that can be sent out to the group, our upcoming orientations. I actually just nailed down a couple of dates. One of them, 2 of them are going to be in person, and 1 of them will be over Zoom. And those are just kind of an introductory orientation. That's the first step. So you get to hear all the information. Much of it you would have already heard today. So maybe we can skip that step if anyone's interested in volunteering after today's presentation. After that, you would participate in a dog or cat TLC. We ask people to pick one, whichever they would prefer to do, dogs or cats to start with. You can eventually do both, but just to start with, because there are a lot of rules when working with shelter animals. There are animals that we don't know. We don't know much about them. Sometimes we do if an owner surrenders them, but even then they're still strangers to us. So for everyone's safety, there are a lot of rules that we have in place. So it's more about learning all the shelter rules and policies. So it's dog TLC, cat TLC, and we do have videos for both of those trainings now, so you can do those at home. And then after that, we have you set up a mentor training, and that's where you would work one-on-one with an experienced volunteer. And they just go through everything here at the shelter, show you the ropes. For example, if you were going to do the dog mentor training, they would be showing you where the kennel keys are and how to use your leash. We use slip leashes here at the shelter, how to get a dog out of the kennel, what yards you can take them to, what dogs you can even take out as a new volunteer, because we have a different level system depending on how strong the dogs are, different behaviors about them and things like that. Everything, of course, it sounds complicated when I say it, but it is just all for everyone's safety and protection so that nothing bad happens. So with that being said, I can send that out so that everyone can have this information. You can share it with other people as well, because we always are needing new volunteers. We can never have enough. We have seen, it's changing a little bit now, but throughout COVID, we did see kind of a decline. This was a nationwide thing, a decline in intake of animals, because so many people rush to adopt animals when they realize, I'm going to be at home, I'm going to be working from home. Now's the perfect time to get a new dog or cat that I've been wanting. And we got so many animals adopted that there were so many homes available, so few animals. Now we're seeing that kind of change a little bit. So now we are going to start having more volunteer recruitment so that we can get more new people in. To answer your question, as far as the Humane Society goes, so in our community, it's us and then the Santa Cruz SPCA. And the SPCA, it is difficult to explain, and I understand why people get us confused, because our shelter, even though we're an open admission shelter where we intake any animal that comes through the doors, no matter what, even if they're aggressive towards people or other animals, we never turn an animal away, and that's our rule. However, all the other things we do, low cost and free spay and neuter. We have a Healthy Pets for All program where we provide free veterinary exams, vaccines, flea and tick prevention, other pet food, pet supplies, our animal control officers, our one-stop low-cost vaccine program, the catio tour, all the events and outreach and all that stuff we do is more equivalent in other communities what would be considered a humane society. Typically, humane societies, SPCAs, they're usually the ones that do humane education and outreach. They're the ones that do free and low-cost spay and neuter. But in our community, it's us. And like I said, I've been working here since 2018, so not that long. I'm not sure why it is that way in Santa Cruz, but in other communities, and I think that's why there is that kind of confusion between the two, and why it just seems like we're the Humane Society or we're the SPCA, because we do everything. In other communities, you see animal services, us doing just the animal control, law enforcement, and sometimes doing adoptions, but not all the other stuff. So, which I think is really important. We've seen such a great impact in the community because of the programs that we offer, because of how progressive our programs are. Other organizations and animal shelters do use some of our programs as an example for how they want to do things, and we are seeing more municipal shelters privately fundraising like we do through our Santa Cruz County Animal Shelter Foundation, so that they can continue to do these progressive programs like us, because our municipal funding covers the basic stuff: animal control, receiving stray and owner surrendered animals. It doesn't cover the outreach that we do with free vet care, free and low cost spay and neuter, humane education. All that stuff is stuff that we privately fundraise for. Yeah, Tony.
So I know last year, COVID rained on everybody's parade, and you were not allowed to do any fundraising sort of events, et cetera. And is there a plan to do something like that maybe this fall?
Yeah, so I know last year definitely canceled some of the big events that we do in person, but last year we had, it was great for fundraising. We actually in, what was it, our 2020 calendar contest raised $20,000. And that was just people submitting their own pet photos and then voting on them. We actually have it going on right now. It's been active for not even a full week, and it's already raised $2,000, which is awesome.
Oh.
Our Santa Cruz Gives campaign, which is a local, any nonprofit can apply to participate in it. We raised $100,000 in that campaign. And in addition to that, we also won the most total donations, so individual donations, which is an additional $1,000 award. We also won the most young donors, which is another additional $1,000 award, which was awesome. So this year we're doing the same thing. So we have the calendar contest going on right now, which is a virtual fundraiser, and so is Santa Cruz Gives, which the application isn't open for that yet, but we plan to apply to participate in it again. We do enjoy that one. And we do have our annual, which was canceled last year, but Parks and Recs, which is a doggy pool party at Simpkins. We partner with Santa Cruz County Parks on that one. And sorry. Announcement. Sorry. They need a dog show, which is great. Maybe someone will get adopted. So the dogs get that people buy a ticket. We have, there's gonna be food trucks and different activities for families, but also the dogs get to have swim time in the swimming pool. And Simpkins, they actually drain the pool at the end of our event. So it's kind of like their end of summer party that they do as well. And it's so fun to see the dogs, some of the labs, if anyone's ever been around a lab, you might know how they feel about water. The way that they dive into the swimming pool is just the cutest thing. It really is a fun event.
When is that?
That is on August 21st.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a Saturday.
Right.
And we are, I think I mentioned at Santa Cruz Mountain Brewing on Thursday for Ales for Tales. We are going to start doing some more events, but it's just been kind of slow moving because the guidelines have changed so many times, but we're working with it. We're trying to get going, get some things going, some fun events.
Great.
Yeah. Does anyone else have any questions?
Yeah, Erica, our mutual friend Maxine had a question in chat. She
Oh.
says, what is the purpose of the dog license? And what does the animal shelter do with the license information?
So the purpose of the dog license is, one, it's good to get your animal registered with the shelter. So for example, Maxine, if your dog were to get out and someone were to find it and bring it to the shelter and it was already licensed with us, we would have their microchip information, if your dog was microchipped, in our system. So we would already have you and your information, and we'd be able to quickly contact you. The license, of course, too, it helps with our other services that we're able to provide, like the spay and neuter, as well as caring for stray and owner surrendered animals. And then what was the rest? What do we do with the license information? We keep it in our records. It's all private, confidential. We don't share it with anyone or do anything in particular with it. We just store it in our records. Yeah. Does that answer your question, Maxine?
I have a question.
I see two hands. I see Pat and Jack. So let's go. We'll go Pat first.
Erica, would you talk about the exciting plans for the renovation of the shelter?
Sure. Thank you. For those of you who didn't hear, Pat is already one of our wonderful treasured volunteers. She comes in here and helps with all kinds of stuff. She's been helping in the spay and neuter clinic, which is one of the exciting renovations, as well as I catch her doing laundry and stuff here sometimes, which is super helpful because it piles up quickly with all these animals. So our expansion plan is happening in a few different phases, but the first phase, which we're crossing our fingers, obviously there's been a lot of issues with construction and lumber prices and all of the above, but it's scheduled to start in the fall. So we're approaching the fall, so it should be soon. It'll be expanding our spay and neuter clinic. We already have a spay and neuter clinic here in our building, but as Pat knows, it is a very small space. It doesn't have a lot of room for animals or for our staff working in there. So it's expanding it out. It also is going to, makes more sense if you are here at the shelter, which if anyone wants a tour, please reach out to me. I'm happy to give you a tour and kind of show you what these plans look like. It'll push out part of our front entryway, and it's going to create a sunny community cat room is what we're calling it. So there'll be more cat space, but most importantly, the cats will have window view of outside, which will be really nice for them to have a lot of natural light in there. Right now in our cat room, they don't have this. It's kind of in the middle of our building. And we're also relocating our rabbit room. That will also be built out in that front entryway as well, because the way our clinic sits, the rabbit room has to go for us to get more clinic space. Our spay and neuter program, just to give everyone kind of an idea of the amount of people we serve with this program, throughout COVID, with the huge increase in people getting new pets and the mandatory spay and neuter ordinance in the county, we have pretty much consistently had a wait list over the last year and a half of over 150 animals the whole time. Not the same 150, we've gotten through them, but it's been consistently that amount of people waiting. And this is because, to give you an idea of what it looks like in the community, which some of you might know if you've gotten a dog spayed or neutered recently, the average price for a spay at a local vet hospital is around $800. That's a lot of money in comparison. Our prices were $190. We actually just raised them to $250. Still, you can see a huge price difference there. We also offer low income discounts as well, just because we want people to comply. We want their pets to get spayed and neutered. We're happy to work with people however we need to get their pets spayed and neutered. So when I do our Healthy Pets for All programs, for example, the last one I did was in June in Watsonville. I probably gave away 30 to 40 free spay and neuter appointments, and we served 110 pets that day. So we provided free exams for 110 pets, vaccines, rabies, distemper parvo for dogs and cats, free pet food, free flea and tick medication. And all of that right now is being supported by a grant that we received from PetSmart Charities. And it's supporting the program for the next 2 years, which is amazing. And with that program, I've also been going out into the homeless encampments, and I just take an ice chest with the vaccines and go out with someone that can help me restrain the animals, and we vaccinate them and talk to people, make sure that their pets are getting the care that they need, and helping them if they're not. So with the expansion, there is also, this is years down the road, it's in different phases, but my phase that I'm very excited about is our education center. Currently, we have this adorable little old house that needs to be torn down. That is kind of a combo right now. It's an additional space for animals. It has a lot of kennels in it. We used it during the fire to house cats because there was just so many cats. It also has a small spay and neuter clinic as well that has been set up for during our transition when we can't use our inside clinic. We will be using that one out there. We call this facility the annex, but it's like this, it's a little tiny cottage with like a little kitchen space and basically 2 rooms and a living room. And its original purpose was the Humane Education Building. And that is where summer camp would happen. We used to have after school program where kids would come and hang out here and help with things like laundry, doing enrichment for dogs and cats and things like that. But now that the space is being used for more animal related things with surgery clinic and stuff like that, we need more space. I haven't really explained the room that I'm in right now is not my office. I have this little teeny tiny cubicle office. This is a supervisor office where multiple people use it, where we do animal evaluations and obviously house cats also because we're just got kittens coming out of our ears at this point. We are a tight facility with the way we operate right now, and having that additional education facility, the way that we're picturing it looking is one part of it would be for things like behavior and training. And this is something that we would also fundraise for and work with our foundation to support, and have different trainers that are able to use it to provide positive reinforcement training at a low cost for people in the community that need it. That is another reason that we see dogs specifically being surrendered to us, is because of behavior. A lot of times it's adolescent dogs that are about 1 year, 2 years old, that are jumping up and being mouthy and high energy and things like that. All things that with a trainer can be worked on, but oftentimes that is an obstacle for people. So anything that we can do to help people keep their pets with them is what we want to focus on. So I'm super excited about that part of the expansion, but that's probably a few years down the road. But we should be starting phase 1 with the expansion of the clinic pretty soon. So yeah. All right.
Eric, I see Jack's got his hand up.
Perfect. Go ahead, Jack.
Yeah, I'm unmuted. Yeah, thank you. It sounds like you're doing all kinds of things. I'm wondering, does your organization, are you involved at all in oversight over kennels? I know our dogs receive great care in kennels, but does anyone oversee what they do? Do you know?
Kennels?
Yeah.
Oh, like boarding facilities.
Boarding kennels, yeah, boarding facilities.
Yeah. You know what? That is something that I believe is actually written into our ordinance, which is not out yet. I think that you can look up the new ordinance because it's still being discussed. And currently we don't have any oversight unless something is reported to animal control. Then we would go and investigate and see what the complaints were and see if we can work with them. But I do believe that in the new ordinance, this is something that I think animal control is looking to have a little bit more oversight on. So yeah, good question. Yeah, I see Maxine has a hand raised. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Our back of our property joins up to an undeveloped area, and we have a wild animal trail that runs just across our whole property, and day and night. I mean, we'll see bobcats, lynx, deer, and I don't know about mountain lions, but we also have a dog in our yard. And so I was wondering if there's anything we can do to to deter the wild animals from walking by our house several times a day. I've heard of these like devices you can put in the back that emit some frequency sound that might scare animals away. But do you have any thoughts on that?
You know what, I don't, and my best advice is to reach out to Native Animal Rescue or Humane Wildlife Control. That's their specialty, is exactly what you're talking about: exclusion, not doing anything that would harm the local wildlife, but doing things that would keep them away and off your property. Do you have a fence line there?
We have, it is fenced to keep my dog in, but animals can jump over the fence. It's not. What are the names of those two organizations so I can write them down?
Yeah, it's Native Animal Rescue.
Okay.
And then Humane Wildlife Control.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. Does anyone else have any questions?
Erika, this has been a fascinating presentation. You're really good at this.
Thank you.
Okay.
Happy to do it.
Thank you so much for being with us today. Obviously, our presenter was Erika Smart from the Santa Cruz County Animal Shelter. I just wanted to let everybody know that we have a fascinating speaker coming up on the 2nd of August. June Gilliam grew up in China and was indoctrinated in communism. And she was fortunate enough to be able to come to this country for education. And she found out what a free world was like. And so she has a fascinating story of being totally indoctrinated in the communist ideas, and then learning for herself what it was like to be in the free world. And she's going to tell that story. So I think many of our members would be delighted to be able to hear her talk. That'll be on August the 2nd at 4 o'clock. It's a Monday afternoon. That's it for the day for Senior Life Online. Erika, again, you're wonderful. Thank you so much for doing this presentation.
Thank you.
And
thanks for having me.
We very much appreciate you. The presentation has been recorded, and so as we get it organized, it will be up on our website. So we would encourage you to go back and look at that if you want to review any of the points that you had or whatever, or just have a chance to see Erika again. Okay. Thank you all. We're so delighted that you were with us today.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
Thank you, Erika.
Thank you.
That's it for the day.
If anyone wants to come in for a tour, feel free to get in touch with me. I'll put my email in the chat.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thanks.
There you go. Wonderful, Erika.
And I'll send an email with a list of resources and some of the stuff I talked about in case anyone wants.
Wonderful. We'll share that with folks.
Perfect.
Okay.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you, Erika. All right.
Bye.
Good night, all.